Pavlo Bandriwsky, Vice President, Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, Illinois Division.
It seems that your organization has been the most active Ukrainian organization in trying to bring up the issues regarding the Ukrainian crisis. You organized two meetings, two briefings in a row with senior U.S. Senator Dick Durbin.
We did. We also organized a round table with Senator Mark Kirk, the Republican senator from the state of Illinois, where we had representatives of other nationalities, including the Ukrainian community present. That was also 2 weeks ago. Ukrainian Congress Committee of America nationally has been in existence for over 70 years, and here in Chicago, UCCA or UKK has been working to unite and represent the Ukrainian community for 40 years.
There were representatives from other communities too, Lithuanian, Polish. How do you assess their support to the Ukrainians?
In addition to those was also representatives from the Latvian and Georgian communities, among others. And what we realize is that in times of crisis, our friends step forward. Last week, we were in Washington. We took a busload of people here from Chicago and joined up with nearly 3,000 or more people in Washington, D.C. in front of the White House. And over there, we had all of the Baltic countries. We had Hungarians there. We had Romanians, and we had the Turks were there. The Crimean Tatars were there, and many, many others, because they all realize it's important to stand up for Ukraine, to stop Russia's aggression, and to make sure that America plays its role in keeping democracy alive in the world.
Today we talked to some people representing the Venezuelan community in Illinois, and they told us that they consider the crisis in Ukraine as very similar to the crisis in Venezuela. Are you surprised by that?
We're not surprised. We've been following the situation in Venezuela for many years. When I went to graduate school in Wisconsin, interestingly enough, one of the fellows who was in class with me was from Venezuela. And he had pleaded, please, America, do something about Hugo Chavez. He's destroying our country. And it was very clear that he was taking them down a very bad path. Maduro is cut from the same cloth as Chavez. His politics are continuing the same destruction for that particular proud nation, and the people are very concerned about their human rights being lost. They have been trying to peacefully demonstrate, as Ukrainians did in Euromaidan, and it was met with death caused by their regime. So we are sympathetic to them. They reached out to us for the prayer vigil, which they are doing today, to pray for Venezuela and Ukraine, and we very much appreciate and support their efforts.
On a pragmatic level, are you satisfied at this moment with what the American government has done in order to help Ukraine?
I think we have to look at it in terms of an analogy. Vladimir Putin, when he invaded Ukraine, put his troops into the Crimea, basically put a noose around his own neck. And what the responsibility of the United States and our allies is to every single day tighten that noose tighter and tighter and tighter. Make him so uncomfortable that he cannot breathe and he needs to capitulate. We heard from Senator Durbin today that America is not ready to send in troops. Okay, he didn't say they won't. What he said was not ready at this time. And I think that's an important distinction, because you have to have every single step exhausted. Why? Ukraine has been under foreign occupation for nearly 400 years. Ukraine has many, many countless heroes, people who have died, who have laid their head to defend Ukrainian independence. If we can resolve this thing without more blood being shed on Ukrainian soil, that would be the preference for everybody, especially Ukrainians.
Yeah, but we have to be realistic, and we are hearing from many people, including people that were attending this briefing and the briefing before, Americans, that they strongly criticize Senator Dick Durbin, the Democrats, and the Obama administration for being extremely weak.
We cannot make this a partisan situation, Republicans versus Democrats, Democrats versus Republicans. Let's not forget, Putin operates in his own world, and in a world which is very foreign, very difficult for the average American to understand his psychology. They don't think the way that Americans think. And we saw this happen under the administration of George Bush, a Republican, when Putin boldly, brazenly, and illegally invaded Georgia 6 years ago. And 6 years ago, the Ukrainian community stood with the Georgians. We went downtown. We helped them organize protests against Russian aggression. We brought our people, our signs, and our energy down to the Chicago Tribune to stand and support the Georgian community. And that happened under a Republican administration. So I think it's very important for people to understand it's not about Republican and Democrat. It's about Russia versus America. Russia versus America, they don't care who's sitting in the White House, who's behind the steering wheel and driving the American economy. What they care about is Russian expansion, Russian aggression, and ultimately their goal is to destroy the United States of America and our way of life. And that's what Americans need to understand. And in times of crisis, and that's what we have here, because quite frankly, we are on the verge of World War III. Should this thing escalate to a hot war with shooting, with killing, this will not end on Ukrainian territory. No question it will spill over to our European allies. No question it will impact us here in America. And that is why when America is under pressure, when America is under attack, bipartisanship comes forward. The bickering between different political parties steps back, and we need to step forward very strongly and united.
And my final question, are you personally optimistic about the outcome in Ukraine? Will Ukraine be able to protect its territory and independence?
Ukraine struggled under the most oppressive political system in modern times, the communist system led by Moscow for 70 years. For 70 years, people were mass executed, mass deported, had their personal property taken away from them. They went through unspeakable terrors and horrors. And yet, 1991, Ukraine became a free country, a country that many people thought would never be able to survive. After the Ukrainian Orthodox Church was prosecuted and persecuted, after the Ukrainian Catholic Church was driven underground and forced to become the largest underground church in the world at its time, yet Ukraine was able to climb out from underneath that terror, declare itself an independent country, and start to rebuild its place in the Western world. I'm optimistic that Ukrainians will yet endure the current situation and overcome the current situation. We believe in God, we believe in having faith, and we ultimately have to maintain our optimism that things will favorably turn to Ukraine.